Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Adventures with Amirah. So today I want to share a very personal story with you, and this is about how I got pregnant with PCOS and just the different things that I went through up until the time that I did get pregnant. I was not diagnosed until many years after I'd been trying to get pregnant. My husband and I actually brought our son home on our 5th anniversary, so that was such a blessing. And we had been told for years that I could not get pregnant just because my hormone levels were all wrong, and we just had, acknowledged that and just thought, we're not gonna keep trying, we're just going to let it happen. If it does happen, we actually were getting ready to adopt a child from Cambodia when I found out I was pregnant. And I found out I was pregnant with my son 4 days after I graduated from college, so that actually turned out to be really good timing. The way that I got pregnant was I kept working out a lot because I was going up and down a lot in my weight, and I knew that I have to do weight training to actually lose weight. I can't just do aerobics and stuff like that. It just doesn't work really well for me. So I'd been going to the gym a lot with my husband, and I'd been on a weight loss plan to where you cut a lot of carbs and you're just eating complex carbs, which is actually really good for me because I'm insulin resistant. And I really honestly believe I've been insulin resistant my entire life. I remember being a child and always just craving sugar, and no matter how much sugar I ate, it just never seemed like enough. I always craved bread and pasta and things like that, and those are the worst things for somebody with insulin resistance. But when you have insulin resistance, your body produces enough insulin normally, especially as a child, but your insulin receptors don't work very well. And unfortunately, the worse it gets, the less active your insulin receptors are, until one point you just eventually can become a full-blown diabetic, which is what I am now. But we had been told, there was nothing we could do. And so I really wasn't even thinking that I would get pregnant. It was a total shock and surprise to me, but I did lose 30 pounds right before I got pregnant. And the food plan that I was on, I was eating lots of egg whites, not the yolks. I would take the yolks out. In the beginning, I would eat a little bit of the yolk, and then eventually I was able to just go, and I would fry them in just like a tiny bit of either nonstick cooking spray, or if I was extra hungry and needed a little bit of oil or something to make me a little more full, I would fry them in that. I cut out bread completely. I was eating white rice, but with no butter or anything like that. I think there was a spray butter that you could use that didn't have a lot of salt. That was a big thing. I cut salt, of course, because you're going to start dropping water weight that way. But I was just doing it to try to get my body a little more healthy. And so I kept working out so hard. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, wow, they had wanted to put me on medications like Clomid and things like that to get pregnant. And I was like, no, that was back when Johnny plus 8 had just really hit big, and I could see myself like Johnny plus 28. No. I was like, I don't know if I could do well with multiple pregnancies and possibly having to terminate. If you have too many fetuses, sometimes they ask you to terminate some, and I didn't think that I could handle that, and my husband and I agreed that we would just adopt rather than trying to push ourselves through that emotionally. I wasn't sure that I could handle that. So when I found out I was pregnant, it was totally by surprise. I had not had a period in 4 years when I got pregnant. That's right, 4 years. So there was no way to know like that. I just started feeling almost depressed. I felt very strange, and I thought, gosh, you just graduated from college. I mean, I do love going to school, but I was like, I don't love school enough that I would be depressed after graduating. I mean, this should be the happiest time of my life. So I'm thinking, what is going on with me? And I actually found out I was pregnant when I was only about 4.5 weeks pregnant. And I remember I went to Walmart and I got a pregnancy test one night, and I had done pregnancy tests before, and if you have PCOS, you know that it's possible to be false positive. And so I was like, gosh, I'm pretty sure I'm not pregnant, but there was just something inside of me telling me to go check, and it came back positive. I couldn't even believe it. My husband was just shocked. And so I thought, well, I'm probably not really pregnant. It's probably a false positive. I'll wait to go to the doctor. And we were Air Force, so we had a doctor right there on base. And so I went to the doctor, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And I was like, I can't, how far along am I, because I don't have, they're like, of course, when's your last period? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, like, they're like, what? So, it was just crazy. And I had just been diagnosed with PCOS probably the year before that. I had doctor after doctor telling me nothing was wrong with me without me having periods. They tried to blame it on my weight, but I was skinny as a teenager. I mean, I don't know, I probably weighed about 135 pounds. And of course I thought I was big back then, but I was probably in a size 8 or so, which for me compared to now is very skinny. But I was like, I didn't have a period then either. I've never had a regular period, maybe once a year, once every 2 or 3 years. I went to doctor after doctor, fertility specialist after fertility specialist. And then eventually I did not gain so much weight. I gained about 80 pounds in 1 year when I was about 22, just totally by surprise. I was very active. I ran in high school. I swam all the time. I've always been super active. And so to gain 80 pounds in 1 year was such a shock. And I kept going to the doctor going, what in the world, is going on with my metabolism? And I didn't know anything really about metabolism back then compared to what I do now. But the doctors kept saying, oh, you'll grow out of it. I'm thinking, I'm 20 something years old. I haven't grown out of not having a period, because that's what they tell you when you're a teenager. And then I had 1 or 2 doctors try to put me on birth control pills. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be on birth control pills because, I've heard bad things can happen to you hormonally. And there were just a bunch of reasons for that. And so, I just always thought that I couldn't get pregnant. So because I had gained so much weight, then they said the more estrogen that you have on you, because when you have excess fat on your body, it holds on to extra estrogen. The more estrogen you have, the more problems you have with your other hormones, and it just throws everything out of sync. But for me to know that I had gone from being thin, and I do have friends that have PCOS that are very thin as well. So it's not just overweight people that have it. I really believe that I was born with this. There's more and more scientific evidence showing that children are getting this from a hereditary means. They can be born with it. The symptoms don't, manifest themselves until you're older. They normally don't know until you start missing a lot of periods and things like that. But I do believe that you are born that way, because I remember being that way from very early on to where I was insulin resistant. So when I got pregnant the first time, I had lost the 30 pounds. When I got pregnant the second time, I had also lost about 35 pounds. And at that time, I certainly didn't think we would ever get pregnant again. I swear it's just how life works out. The week before I got pregnant with my daughter, I just had a huge garage sale. We sold the crib and the stroller and the walker and all kinds of stuff, because my son was almost 4 at that time. Well, he was 3. And it was like the next week, and I just had this strange feeling. And the doctor was trying me out on a different type of birth control that wasn't really to keep me from getting pregnant, but trying to regulate some of my hormones. And I had gone to the doctor, and he had taken me off one birth control and was trying something different. I don't even remember what it was back then, but be very careful with birth control, girls with PCOS, because our hormones are already so messed up. It's very difficult on your body when you're using hormones and you already have an endocrine disorder. Bad news. Anyway, so I go into the doctor, and he's about to put me on another type of birth control or something, and I was like, well, do you think you should do a pregnancy test on me? And he was like, do you think you're pregnant? I was like, how would I know? I don't ever have periods. I don't know. It just, something told me, and I was about 4.5, 5 weeks pregnant. I wasn't feeling as depressed with my daughter as I was with my son, and I don't mean depressed like super sad all the time, just like more weepy with, the Hallmark Channel commercials and stuff like that. Like, why am I so emotional, I guess? And I wasn't as much so with my daughter, but sure enough, I was pregnant, and I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, it was just so strange. So I figured out I was pregnant both times before I ever, I don't know. We weren't trying to get pregnant. We were just so grateful we had one child. We weren't going to push it. So at that point, I was like, well, I want to get my tubes tied with this pregnancy, afterwards, because I don't want to put all the stress on my body. I had high-risk pregnancies with both of my children. I had gestational diabetes with both of them. With my son, I was up to 4 shots a day of insulin. It was crazy. They had me on 2 different types of insulin, and they were just trying to get my fasting blood sugars under control, which to this day my fasting blood sugars are all over the place. There's something called the dawn phenomenon is one thing for it, but your hormones change during the night while you're sleeping, and apparently every time my hormones are changing at night, it just spikes my blood sugar through the roof. Or they bottom out, and then it's called a rebound effect, where they get so low that your body produces more insulin, and then it goes way high again. I mean, it's just crazy. And they never did figure out how to get my blood sugar correct. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and my blood sugar would be 40, and by the time I woke up, which is very dangerous, I had to keep fruit and stuff by the side of my bed, and then I'd wake up in the morning and my blood sugar would be almost 300. I mean, it was insane. And you know, through all of that, I just didn't want to put all that pressure on my body. And you know, using insulin the whole time you're pregnant and stuff, you worry about the baby. Of course, that's better than having high blood sugars and, you know, constantly, and that causing an issue as well. But as soon as I had the baby, I knew that I was having a C-section. I had a C-section with both of my babies, and my son came 6 weeks early, so that was like an emergency C-section. I had no idea I was even in labor, and that's a whole nother video. I'll have to tell you about that. That was a crazy story. But he was healthy, and he's been healthy his whole life. And with my daughter, I just was telling the doctor, you know, I really don't want to have to go through this again. I've had 2 surprise pregnancies, and that's really enough. I mean, I was so grateful to have 1 baby and then to have 2. I have a boy and a girl. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more. We are just so happy that we have kids. I mean, it's the best thing that's ever happened to us. I can't imagine my life without my babies, and it's everything I could have ever wanted. Sorry, I get so emotional about them, but it's everything I could have ever wanted in having children, and the mommy experience is just amazing. I love every second of every day. I mean, of course, there's hard days, you know, with when they're little and the diapers, or they get sick and things like that, but it's been so worth it. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything on this earth. They are the greatest gift God has ever given me, other than my husband. Those 2 things together are just, I could never want for more in life. So I just wanted to tell you guys that the way that I got pregnant, and the way that I've read a lot of other people with PCOS get pregnant, is to lose weight. It's something about when you start losing a little bit of weight, and you change your carbohydrate intake, especially if you're already heavy set like I was, because I didn't gain hardly any weight with my pregnancies. I was so strict on myself. That's probably the healthiest I've ever been in my life, is when I was pregnant both times. But I was eating lower carbs, and something about the insulin resistance, it just triggers something into your body to ovulate. And obviously you do not have to have a period to ovulate. So sorry if this rambled on and on and on, but I just wanted to let you guys know what worked for me twice by mistake. I lost about 30 pounds both times. I was on low carbohydrate diets. I was not able to run as much because I have back problems, but I did do a little bit of running. Like I would do walk, run on the treadmill. We were living in Colorado both times when I got pregnant, and so I wasn't outside a lot in the winter because it's snowing and I don't go outside in the snow. So I really was just going to the gym or working out at home, and I'm not, obviously I'm not a workout freak, so I don't work out like the Power 90X or whatever it's called and all that like extreme stuff. No, I do light weights and then build up to a little bit heavier weights, and I just do walking, maybe 20 minutes. If I'm integrating walking and running, I'll do, you know, 1 minute of running is normally the most I'll do, maybe 2, and then I'll walk and then run and then walk. And that was how I lost the weight, and just watching my carb intake. I mean, it sounds crazy that doing that could really spontaneously make you ovulate, but it did work for me twice, and I've read so much research from other girls and other medical reports online that that's what helped them, cutting their carbs and really watching their intake on their calories, as far as, you know, what type of calories they're getting in, and working out. And for me, doing light weights helped as well. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I have tons of other information about this that I'll be willing to share with you guys in the future. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.